Hi class, welcome back. Today we are going to do the Folding Explosion book. This is how it looks right here. It's got a hardcover and 3 internal sheets. You could actually do this very long, do many more than 3 sheets. But I'm going to go over today the basics for making this book, and then you can choose to do whatever kind of variation in size that you would like. So to get started, let's first go over all of the supplies that you are going to need at your station. I have pre-covered my 2 cover boards. They are 4.5 square, so you'll need to get some Davy board and cut those to 4.5 square. The cover sheets, which could be decorative paper, book cloth, anything that you would like, you're going to need to make those 5.25 square inches. And then you'll cover them, you'll have a nice border wrap around. If you need instructions on how to do this, you can look at my hardcover accordion variation demo and see how to get that started. The other thing you're going to need is 3 sheets of 8.5 square paper for your internal contents of your book. That can be cardstock, it could be thinner paper. Usually cardstock holds up nicely for making a beautiful kind of sculptural structure. I have a little bit of a variation of different papers that I have found here to use. This is a cardstock, and then these are some printmaking papers. But you can use anything really, even copy paper will work, but it's nicer to use something a little thicker. So at least 3 of those, 8.5 inch square. You're also going to need some ribbon or tie. I'm going to show you today how to do a tie closure on your book, just so that you start knowing how to do that. You can use that for your hardcover accordion and other books that you want. Sometimes you don't want that look because it can look a little more crafty, but it just depends on what you're going for aesthetically. Okay, so, and make sure your ribbon's long enough. You're going to be doing 2 sides for that. And then some copy paper, just cheap basic copy paper for gluing. Okay, bone folder, X-Acto knife with a nice clean sharp blade, a mechanical pencil, roller, okay, and then also some of your PVA glue, and I've got a cup with my cheap Home Depot brush. You can use any brush you want, okay, just something that is easy for you to work with. So that's everything that we're going to be using today. You can also look at my instructions to all the written instructions to get all of the supplies that you need. All right, so let's get started with first folding our internal sheets. Okay, so you have been asked in your instructions to have 3 pieces of 8.5 inch square paper. I actually have 4 today. You can add more than 3. It's just that 3 would be kind of the minimum for making this book look very interesting. So, and it can just go on forever. It doesn't have to have a hardcover either. But so this blue one is already pre-folded to show you kind of how it's going to sit. So I'm going to show you how to fold each one, or I'm going to just show you how to fold, and then we'll do each one. And then after that, I'm going to show you how to glue them together. So to start, let's start with the gray one. You're going to want to fold it in one direction, basically what would be vertical, okay? Make sure that both sides are lined up evenly, pinch in the center, and then with your bone folder, you're going to go in and to the outside and to the other side. That way it doesn't sway one direction or the other. Then you're going to flip it the opposite way, so it's in a cross, and you're going to fold it again. Again in the center, out. Okay, so now you've got a full cross. Now I'm going to flip it over the opposite direction, so my mountain side is up, and I'm going to take from one corner to the other, and I'm going to fold it now the opposite direction and go from the middle out. Okay. And then now it should fold in like that, okay? So I'm going to do that for each one. Okay, so I have got all these internal sheets folded all the same way, and now what I'm going to do is glue them together. So first off, I'm just going to start with the first color I'm going to do and open it up. And what I'm going to want to do is glue basically one corner sheet into the other, and I'm going to keep going in a row until I get all of them attached. So make sure to have your copy paper underneath you and a brush that you want to work with that works well. And you're going to start by just putting glue just on the surface of the area you want to cover. Try not to get any glue outside the folded line. This brush might not be the best suited for that. I'm going to get a nice even coat. What I like to do then is take my copy paper and flip it over right away so that no glue gets anywhere. Okay, so I've added my first sheet here. One thing to remember when you're adding one sheet to the next is that you've got what is called a valley going in with this folded structure in this way, and you've got the top part, which is a mountain, okay, which is the top part of the crease if it's flipped over. When you are adding one, like this first one to the next one, you need one to be a valley and the next one to be a mountain. So now what I've added, this is my valley first to my mountain, and then here's my mountain. Now I'm going to add a valley piece like this, okay? So just remember you're going to want to go opposite. If you get stuck or flip it around the wrong way, you can always just crease the folds the opposite direction and it will create it into a mountain shape. Okay, basically it's just folding it the opposite direction. So I'm going to continue to glue these and then get all of my content together. I'll show you in just a sec. Okay, so I have glued all of these together now, with them being a mountain, a valley, a mountain, a valley. And then the idea is that they will fold in on each other to make a square like this, okay? And definitely I'm seeing a little bit of issue with the way I had folded, which will have some issues when it lines up, but it's pretty good for a sample. So you want to be as precise as possible, and the more paper you add and the thicker it is, obviously the thicker it's going to be when it's all folded together into a smaller book. When it comes out, it should sit out like this. So I'm going to put this to the side now, and I'm going to show you how to add your ribbon to the inside part of your covers, and then we will add the hard covers to either side of this book. Okay, so for this next part here, I'm going to actually add some ribbon into the internal side, the inside part of my cover. What I want to do is I want to make sure first you're going to need your mechanical pencil and an X-Acto knife as well as your ribbon. I am going to take my ruler and I'm just going to make a mark. This is 4.5 inches wide, so I'm going to do this right at the 2.25. And this ribbon's a little bit bigger. You can use any ribbon you'd like. You want to make sure that it comes in about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to have it come right over the top of that line there. And I'm going to make a mark on either side, just kind of tracing where my ribbon's going to sit. Okay, and that'll make this kind of pencil mark area here. And I'm going to do this also on this board as well, but I'm going to just show you with this one. So I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and I'm going to go in. And Davy board is really great for this. You can actually, you don't want to trim all the way, you don't want to go through entirely into the board, but you're just going to go in kind of partially, kind of light. And then you're going to pull away some layers here of the board, just like that. And then you can actually glue this ribbon in right into there, but it will also, because of that cutaway that we made, it sits completely flush underneath the paper you add to the board so that you can't see it at all. So then add a little bit of glue all the way around. You want to make sure, obviously not too much glue, but enough to really hold that ribbon. So I'm just making sure that it's a nice even amount and try not to get it anywhere but inside that little cutaway I made. And then I am going to glue that ribbon right into that little area. And you can make the ribbon size any length you want. It's up to you. I'm just gonna make kind of a little tail like that, and I'm gonna repeat this for the next board before we go on to attaching the contents to the cover. Okay, so I've done both of these boards now. The ribbon, I made sure that it was sitting in the same exact place, okay, and I've glued them both in really well. So then all we need to do now is just glue our cover boards to either side. So what you want to make sure to do is when you glue one of the boards, you want to make sure that the ribbon is in the same place on both of the boards. So we're going to glue this first one, and then I'm going to show you to make sure you do the same one on the other side. So you will need to grab your copy paper again, and now this time I'm going to flip this over, okay, and I'm going to put glue all on the back side here. And remember just not to move this at all when you're gluing it so that you don't get any glue around on the underside of the paper. Try not to go over that line, folded line if you can. And just nice even distribution of glue. Have a bit there. And again, I'm just going to make sure, fold that over so that's no issue. And then when you go ahead and glue it, you can flip it back over the other way. I'm going to line this up. My board is slightly bigger than my paper, so I know I'm going to have a little bit of a border around. I want to make sure it's as even as possible on the back side there too. You can move it a little bit, but the PVA is really strong, so once it starts to adhere really well, you're kind of stuck with what you get, so make sure you get it in a spot you really like. And then I'm just going to take my bone folder and burnish the top so it's really glued well to the surface. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I want to make sure that the boards line up really well. So make sure to fold that. Okay, so what I'm going to do for this next one, I'm going to glue this other side. One thing I think is really important to do is to have the same weight paper for the whole inside contents of your book structure. I'm noticing a little bit of issues with how it's folding because I have different weights and different types of paper mixed together. And while that can be cool, when it goes and gets folded into a tight little book, it can be problematic the way it sits. So if you choose like a copy paper, use copy paper for the entire thing, or if it's a cardstock, just try and pick the same kind of weight. And printmaking paper, thicker printmaking paper might be a little too heavy for this kind of thing. Okay, so I've got glue everywhere in there. So this time around, I want to make sure that my book is entirely folded up. Okay. Move this to the side. And what I'm going to do is, with this laying on top, I'm going to line up as best I can the boards on either side there. Okay. And then I'm going to flip this open and just make sure it's sitting as even as possible. And it should stick pretty well there. And then I can go ahead and burnish. That way your outside boards line up well. Okay. Okay. So here is the final book. I actually added a 5th folded in here because I realized you actually needed in all odd numbers for having all of both your cover boards sit down flat to the bottom of the surface. So make sure you always add them in odd numbers, either 3, 5, 7, whatever, but just don't do it at even numbers or else you won't have your boards sit the same way. But so here's when it's folded out in this really cool sculptural type of book structure, and then it folds right in. Well, it does fold in. You just kind of have to maneuver it like this. And then it folds in on itself like that. And you can tie it. Now, one thing, I've only added a tie on this side, but if you wanted to, you could add a tie on that side as well, and that would hold it really tight on the other end. And then obviously when you loosen it, you can open it up like this. So that is the Folding Explosion book. I hope that you enjoy making this. I think it's a really cool structure, and I'm really excited to see your prototypes. Have fun.